You know what would be like the ultimate like crime solving thing, the murder solving tool, if the cops could talk to the dead. But that that's never going to happen.
No.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Well, let's jump into our story. David Chase was a 42-year-old cabinet maker and craftsman from Colorado.
okay.
On June 6, 1995, he had
Oh,
an
pretty
odd job
recent.
with it.
Pretty recent. I'm sorry. They're usually old stories.
30 years?
Yeah, it's on our time frame.
All right. On June 6, 1995, he had an odd job with his neighbor, Matt Orahosky. Orahosky. We'll call him Orahosky. I don't know.
That sounds good.
Who I'll call him Matt. He was a handyman that did odd jobs with David every now and then. So on that particular day, they had two things on their schedule: finishing a roofing job and cleaning some brush for a local moose club. For those of us in the 21st century, the Moose Club is a fraternal order, kind of like the Freemasons, except for being spawned instead of being spawned, by an order of craftsmen that started like, thousands of years ago. This was started by a guy in Kentucky that, as a men's social club.
Something to do on a Friday night.
Yeah. All right. So David and Matt finished those two jobs by midday and they went to go get lunch together. After they had their lunch, they hit the bank so David could cash an $1,800 check.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, after he had a pocket full of cash, the two guys hit up a bar called On the Rocks. That was in Evergreen, Colorado.
Well, it's a pretty clever name. Like it.
Yeah. Back at David's home, his wife Judy started getting worried because David wasn't home after she specifically asked him to not go out drinking with Matt. According to Judy, Matt was known for drinking too much and he had a tendency to get into fights. Drinks. He did promise Judy that this was the last jobs he was doing with Matt. He wasn't going to work with him anymore. Now, when David had not returned home by the next morning, Judy went to Matt's house. Matt told Judy that David left the bar and went home the night before. However, when Judy got back to her house, she called Matt's girlfriend, who told her something different. According to Matt's girlfriend, he had told her that David had a raft and decided to go swimming in the Bear Creek River that was next to the bar that they were at.
Perfect sense.
Yeah. Well, it didn't make any sense to Judy because, remember, this is in Colorado. There is still snow on the river, even though it was June. And according to her, David wouldn't do anything that stupid like get into a snowy river.
After being drunk.
Yeah. Judy did the smart thing and she went straight to the cops. She talked to two people, got two different stories. Like, oh, no, police. The police went straight to Matt since he was the last one to see David. The story he told them did not match the one that he told Judy, but it did match the one that his girlfriend told Judy about hey, I got a raft. I'm going to hop in the river.
Oh, because they got their story straight.
Yeah. So here's how Matt recounted their day. First, they were just drinking all day and went to several bars. Then they went and gathered the brush from the Moose Club and dumped it in the river on the rocks. Then David jumped into the snow-covered river and told Matt, pick him up in Morrison, Colorado, which is about 17 miles away.
Just on a whim?
Yeah, just like, hey, dude, I'm going to go jump in this river. You go drive 45 minutes and go pick me up. Later, bro. So Matt claims to have not seen him after that. He jumped in the river. It's like, oh, all right. It didn't even say if he went to Morrison to go pick him up or whatever. It just, So Judy, aside from believing her husband would not jump into a snowy river, also claimed he was fanatical about keeping the wilderness pristine and would not have dumped the brush into the river. The cops began their search. but it was hampered by rain and flooding in the weeks following the disappearance. So, you got a guy jump in the river, you get a lot of rains and floods. It's going to be kind of
Oh,
hard to find a guy in a river.
yeah, I'm gonna spread that shit out.
So, over a month after his disappearance, on July 24th, 1995, a property caretaker found David's body 3 miles downstream from where it was said that he jumped in. An autopsy was performed on the decomposed remains and determined the cause of death to be consistent with drowning. However, despite Matt's insistence that David had been drinking, there was no indication of alcohol in his blood. It was also noted that David had a broken neck and unusual cuts on his legs. He was found only wearing his socks and shoes with only part of one of his pants legs on him.
So his pants were hanging off, just one leg on,
Yeah. I mean,
no shirt.
actually, I think both of his pants legs were. It's hard to say. Now, his clothes were obviously ripped from his body, and that's normal in cases whenever somebody gets caught in river currents and flood currents. It will
Yeah,
pull their clothes off.
it's like a washing machine. It just throws you around.
Yeah, it's kind of like whenever sometimes when, like, people get run over, it, like, pulls them right out of their clothes. The discovery of the body triggered the police to formally question Matt. So now it's time to get serious. This resulted in a news story from Matt that claimed that after dumping the brush into the river, David had accidentally fallen in. They didn't go to the bar, they didn't go out drinking, they just, they were doing the job and he just fell in. A change in the story is enough to raise eyebrows, but
Yep.
it's even more odd because Matt did not go into on the rocks that was right by where they dumped the brush to get help, or the fire station that was 50 yards away. Judy also claimed that Matt's girlfriend, and I have no idea what her name is because she was never named anything else in the articles other than Matt's girlfriend, said that she found $800 in cash in Matt's glove box. The plot thickens. This caught Judy's attention because David he cashed those checks earlier that day. They knew that. There's a paper trail on that. The detective in charge of the case, Don Olin, did ask for a warrant for Matt's arrest for murder and negligence. But the district attorney's office declined because they didn't believe they could win with just the testimony and circumstantial evidence. And from there, the police investigation slowed to an absolute crawl. 3 months following David's initial disappearance, a private detective named Phil Harris woke up around 4 a.m. He didn't wake up because he needed to pee, but according to him, he heard a voice. Not just any voice, but David Chase's voice. According to
Oh,
Phil, this is what the voice told him. David initially intended to deposit the $1,800 check, but Matt talked him into cashing it so that he could sell a truck to David. David, ended up with second thoughts about buying this truck from Matt, and then Matt gets super pissed off. Ghost David goes on to say that Matt began yelling at him that he promised him that money, so it was his. Matt then shoved David. David shoved Matt back. Matt and David began exchanging punches, rolling around on the ground fighting. Next thing Ghost David remembers is being hit on the back of the neck with something hard. He didn't know what it was, but he knew that it broke his neck.
man. It was a long conversation to have with a ghost.
Oh, it ain't done.
Oh,
From there, Phil was told by the voice of David that Matt got help to get rid of his body. It was the accomplice that used the knife to cut the clothes from his body and apparently cut his legs in the process. So, what does Phil do? He just had a conversation with a ghost in the pre-dawn morning. Phil approached Judy with his paranormal with a story about his paranormal interaction and what he was told by Ghost David. Phil told her personal details that David told him about their relationship, including that David would call her Honey Bunny and Shuggies. Phil, being a private detective, he offered he offered her services to the case. And this part where you're like, well, okay, Darrell, here's the scam part. Yeah, he offered his services for the low price of $1.
Oh, okay. So he's
Just
not scamming her. Yeah,
yeah,
just to prove. Okay.
just $1 so that she'd be a paid customer. He could say she's her client and then talk on her behalf. Philip believed he had been chosen for a reason, and he wanted to see this case through. Knowing they needed some kind of physical evidence to tie Matt to the murder, that's what he began searching for.
That was something that
A,
hit him in the back of the neck.
yeah. A year after David's initial disappearance, Phil took Judy to a reservoir. David's voice talked to him again and told him that Matt and his accomplice tied his clothes, like his shirt, the clothes that wasn't still on him,
Yeah, they cut off.
around the murder weapon and threw it into the reservoir. This would be the part of the movie where they would search and find the evidence, but that's not how this story works.
This ain't no movie, bruh.
Because Phil Harris died of a massive heart attack a week later.
Dun dun dun.
The police, they still had the case. They're still looking for some physical evidence or solid witness. They don't discount Phil's information, but they need something to corroborate it. The case is still open and unsolved. The only other thing I've been able to find are claims of other theories that David's wife Judy has. Her and David were in the process of adopting twins that they had been fostering. She believes a child sex trafficking organization killed David and Phil. Following the loss of David, they took the twins away from her, and she never heard from them ever again. Now, I'm pretty sure, if David was murdered, which it seems like that's the most likely scenario, I'm fairly certain it was for the cash. Phil's death really seems like terrible timing, just the worst timing.
There
And
was
then
no
on top
foul
of
play involved in that one that they
no, it was a heart
found. Just
attack.
a heart attack. Just a
He's a
heart
big guy.
attack.
Big guy had a heart attack.
Okay.
Bad timing. Then on top of all that, she loses these kids that her and David wanted to adopt. I mean, she lost a lot, and I can see her wanting to blame something bigger, than just some greedy prick. That she want it to be that some big clandestine organization.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I can see that.
yeah, or maybe having ghost testimony got a lot of attention on her husband's case, and she wanted to keep getting eyes on it by saying crazy shit. Because that's what some people do. They'll go out and say crazy stuff just to make sure that people don't forget a case.
I can see that too.
Mm-hmm.
When you want answers and nobody seems to want to help you and you're at a loss, you get pretty desperate.
Yeah. That's a bummer ending, isn't it?
If Ghost David was able to contact now Phil or the last
Mm-hmm.
detective, why hasn't he been able to contact another random person to keep this going?
Do I look like Miss Cleo to you?
No, I'm just putting it out there.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes, what was his last name in case anybody wants to contact him on a Ouija board?
Oh, his name is David Chase.
David Chase. That's
Yeah,
okay. You
and
can
then
say.
Phil Harris was the detective. He's dead now too, so you can only reach out and touch him on the Ouija board.